Welcome, Rotarians and guests, to the Rotary Club of York, where our mission is to improve life in the city of York by connecting our club's diverse community leaders through fellowship, action, and service. I'm your president, Wilda Ream. And as you know, we start off our meetings by reciting the four-way test. Please join me. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Today, our opening song, God Bless America, and the pledge will be led by past President Glenn Miller, not the invocation, followed by the invocation by past President Jackie Summers, and visitor introductions by Tamara Snead.
Thank you, President Wilda. Rotarians, please join me. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon. Please join me in a word of prayer. Gracious God, we're grateful to gather as Rotarians in the spirit of service and fellowship. As we strive to lift our community and fulfill the Rotary mission, grant us strength and wisdom to support one another, especially those carrying burdens of grief and loss. May we offer comfort where there is sorrow, hope where there is despair, and understanding where there is pain. Guide our hands and hearts to serve with empathy and kindness, reminding us that through unity and caring, we bring healing and light to those in need. Today, we lift up our speaker, fellow Rotarian Bernice Quesenberry, who has courageously fought her own battle of grief and loss and become an inspiration to countless others, transforming how grief, trauma, and mental health are addressed by providing families with much-needed compassion and consistent trauma-informed care. We thank you for the blessing of this food and for those who have prepared and served it. And now with gratitude, we ask for your continued guidance in all we do. Amen.
Hi, hello. Oh, I like that. There was a response there. I am pleased to have the honor of introducing our guests of today's meeting. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing until President Wilda has welcomed you. So first, a visiting Rotarian, Scott Burford from York East. Luis Riviera, guest of membership. Jackie Smith, guest of youth leadership. Linardin Bartholomew, guest of youth leadership. Maria Bartholomew, guest of youth leadership. Stay standing. Rebecca Bartholomew, guest of youth leadership. Abby Jacobs, guest of youth leadership. Maxwell Jacobs, guest of youth leadership. Ella Rodriguez de Costa, guest of youth leadership. Ruby Hartman, guest of youth leadership. Elda Nazario, guest of youth leadership. Roz Dean, guest of Vanita Dalwari. You thought I was going to say youth leadership. No. We have Roz, did I say Roz Dean? Yes. Joey Dara, guest of Vanita Dalwari. We have Katie Harrington, guest of our speaker. Walter Carr, guest of our speaker. Paula Carr, guest of our speaker. Travis Getzler, guest of our speaker, Leonard Shanag, guest of Thomas Catalog. So I don't have to say that, right? It was said for me? Okay. I was so close to getting the end. So close, right? All right. And Charles Barnes, a guest of Youth Leadership.
Guests, we're so glad to have you here with us today. Whether this is your first visit or you're back again, it's always a pleasure to have new faces in the room. If what you see here today resonates with you, we'd love to have you consider becoming part of our Rotary family. Rotarians, please help me welcome our visitors. You may be seated. I was saying earlier, it's great to be back at the country club. I haven't been here since March, or we haven't been here. So as you know, I missed the meeting last week, and our wonderful past president Courtney filled in for us, or filled in for me. I was attending the Susquehanna Nonprofit Summit in Gettysburg. As you can see, I was in good company with these club members and others that were not pictured, most of whom are also nonprofit leaders like myself. So there's a nice little Rotarian in the wilds of Gettysburg. Also, we love it when our members share photos when they encounter Rotary in their travels. Here's a photo sent in by Debbie Ashway, who is visiting Moab, Utah, just showing that Rotary is truly everywhere. Our committees, the IDEA committee will meet on May 4th at 9 o'clock on Zoom. The Youth Leadership Committee will meet on May 5th at 3 o'clock on Zoom. And now an exciting announcement from past President Glenn Miller.
We think it's exciting, but you can be the judge. Good afternoon. I am here in my capacity as a member of the board of directors of the York Rotary Foundation and the soon-to-be outgoing chair of the fundraising committee of that board. Over 43 years ago, this club received its first endowment gift, and thus was born at that time the Charitable Endowment Fund of the Rotary Club of York. Those early Rotarians understood even then the power of endowment for an organization, the ability to provide perpetual support for charitable work. The focus then was mainly on scholarships, but over the decades, the club's endowment has grown both in size and in scope. The club's endowment has changed in other ways too. Several years ago, the Charitable Endowment Fund was changed to the York Rotary Foundation, or what we now affectionately call YRF. This change was about more than just a new name. It was a recognition that what we have now and what we hope to have in the future merited a new and clearer identity, complete with its own 501c3 status, which we already had, and an independent board. It was also becoming clear that we should be doing a better job of recognizing the generous men and women in this club who give to this, our local foundation. Rotary International has been a model on how to do recognition properly. The Paul Harris Fellowship Program of Rotary International is clear and powerful. Donors to Rotary International are recognized at the $1,000 level and above with Paul Harris Fellowships. As we all know, and many of you rightly in this room, along with me, are Paul Harris Fellows, celebrating and recognizing the generosity to that foundation. So, as a preaching professor of mine said many years ago, it's okay to steal ideas, just be sure you steal good ones. The York Rotary Foundation is therefore this day pleased to be launching our own parallel recognition program, the York Rotary Foundation Guardian Circle. Like the Paul Harris Fellowship Program, every member of the Rotary Club of York who donates $1,000 or more to one of the 6 established funds in the foundation will be recognized as a York Rotary Foundation Guardian. Webster's defines guardian as one who protects or defends something. The Guardians of the York Rotary Foundation are doing just that. We are protecting and defending the future of our club's charitable work by ensuring that that work continues in perpetuity. And how will we recognize the York Charitable Foundation Guardians? Well, rather than a pin, Guardians will be recognized with a special badge. Now, some of you may be thinking, badges? We don't need no stinking badges. For all of you fans of the Treasure of the Sierra Madre or Blazing Saddles. But in fact, we do need badges. We want to be sure that everyone who's stepped up in this way is both recognized for their generosity and that they have the opportunity to witness to all the rest of us what we could and perhaps should also be doing. And this is also not in conflict with your Paul Harris Fellow pin. A special group of folks today are being welcomed as the inaugural members of the Guardian Circle. 26 of our members have chosen to lead the way on this initiative, and I am very pleased to recognize each one of them at this time. As I call your name, please come forward and Lynn will present you with your badge, and please remain standing so that we can get a photo of the group. Mike Anstein, President-elect Doug Berman, who is not present, past President Rob Bowen, Mac Brillhart, Lori Broadbeck, Jane Davis, past President Bob Davis, Don Dellinger, John Eister, BJ Fegley, Stephen Feldman, Bill Hartman, George Hummel, Bill Hunter, past President Jody Keller, Steve Merrick, myself, Alice Mudrow, Joan Mummert, past President Courtney Piccolo, Rich Randall, Sonam Ruid, Brad Smith, past President Dan Waltersdorf, Jan Wolgemuth. And the last three names, we are doing the same +1 system that Paul Harris Fellows provides. And so today, in this inaugural class, Amy Anstein, who is a Guardian +1, past President Josh George, a Guardian +2, and Fran Hoover, who is a Guardian +4, right out of the gate. So there is no doubt in my mind that two things are going through your mind right now. The first is, when is he going to be done talking? And second, how can I become a Rotary Guardian? It is very simple. And again, it is very similar to the way that you become a Paul Harris Fellow. You can make an outright gift of $1,000 or more, as all 26 of these folks have done. Or you can begin making incremental gifts that will lead to you reaching that $1,000 level, again, just as many of us do with Paul Harris. These 6 funds of the foundation that you would make your gift to encompass just about anything that you would want to support in the club. So those funds are in no way limiting. Nor, again, are you limited to giving $1,000, as several of our Plus members have just demonstrated. In closing, my deep gratitude again to our inaugural leaders of the Guardian Circle, my gratitude also to the York Rotary Foundation Board of Directors and the fundraising committee of the board for their great work in wrestling with all of this and bringing this finally to fruition today. And finally, to Lynn Morrison, who's been, as always, a tireless partner in this work. If you are interested in joining, and I hope you will be, please see me or Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. And again, thank you to the York Rotary Foundation. And thank you to all of our Rotarians who are helping to ensure the financial sustainability of this organization and the impact that we have in the community through your generosity. And now, President-elect nominee Kelly Gibson has an update on Give Local York.
Thank you, President Wilda. I am also here on behalf of the York Rotary Foundation. For a few years now, the Rotary Club of York has participated as a fundraising activity during Give Local York. But during our meetings at the foundation, we had conversations about we want to be seen as a community leader, a community supporter, and to be an impactful member of our community and support the work out there for York City youth success. So instead, the Rotary Club is going to sponsor prizes during Give Local so that we are amongst those providing support to organizations that are doing good work. So as you can see, we're going to have a lunchtime prize that's specifically the noon hour to celebrate our weekly lunch meetings. And it will be targeting prizes for organizations that do the work of supporting York City youth success. So we're thrilled to say, please give to other organizations doing that work during Give Local. And we will be thrilled to announce our prize winners after the event is over. We hope that you'll choose members of the Rotary Club of York to support during Give Local, and to all of our nonprofit members, have a great Give Local York.
Thank you, Kelly. It's an exciting change for Rotary, and I think a great alignment with our strategic plan and the direction that we're heading in becoming a supporter and a funder in the community. I'm excited to see how that goes. I, for one, will be very happy after Friday night. I'm going to get some more sleep. So now I invite Leanne Wilson, Chair of the Youth Leadership Committee, to the podium for an announcement from the Youth Leadership Committee. I'm starting to see how many times we can say youth leadership today.
All right. Well, in January, I provided a youth leadership strategic update on how our committee has really adopted the strategic plan and has taken on many new projects this year. Before lunch, you may have seen some of the results of our reimagined four-way test. We asked York City students in grades 6 through 12 to apply the four-way test and answer this question. Our world needs more than words. It needs action. What action can young people take today to create a fairer, kinder, and more truthful tomorrow? The students then chose to submit their responses either as a post that was shown before lunch or as a video. We are proud to report that this contest was a resounding success. We received 41 submissions. This did include a 6th grade class from Devers Elementary, where Mrs. Miller adopted the contest into her curriculum, and the students submitted their thoughts, tackling a wide range of social issues, including community engagement, climate change, homelessness, violence, mental health, hunger, and kindness. We then had 7 Rotarians take on the difficult task of judging all of these submissions. So today we are pleased to be able to announce our contest winners and recognize 4 of the 6 winners that are here with us today. So I'm going to start with the post track. The students had to create 6 to 9 images for answering the question, and the winning posts were shared on screen before the meeting. Our 3rd place winner cannot be here today, but we will be sending Mia Moore Johnson her $100 check. She is a 6th grader in that Mrs. Miller's class, and she came up with a plan for Kindness Day, where older students work with younger students. Our 2nd place winner is here today to receive her $250 check. That would be Rebecca Bartholomew. Rebecca is a 12th grader at William Penn High School, and she tackled how to have political advocacy and speaking up for issues in a respectful manner. You don't need to say anything. Our 1st place winner for the post also could not be here today. Jeremy Sanchez is an 11th grader at William Penn High School. He was one of our students of the month this year, and you may recall his speech that addressed creating a bilingual club at William Penn. And his post was about how that has provided a welcoming environment to allow everyone to feel included. So we will be sending him his $500 check to him as well. So now I will move on to our video winners. The students were asked to create a 60 to 90 second video, and we're going to show the video one at a time before we call the student apps. So Cody.
Imagine walking down the street on a nice day just like today and showing acts of kindness to one another. That will make you feel good. And I feel that's something the world needs nowadays. Because the world is so full of so much hatred. And hate causes nothing but destruction and negativity. And we need to shine a light on that hate. And the way we do that is through love. Love is like lighting up a flashlight in a dark room. It illuminates our paths and what steps we are supposed to take next. And ways we can show love is through appreciating one another, building each other up, encouraging one another, not tearing each other down. And I've myself been a victim of hate. And I've experienced love through God, my church, in a program called Cooking Up Connections, where I help youngsters such as myself create a sense of belonging and spread love in the community. And I've come to realize that showing love to one another helps me become a better man. It builds character, and it's how we create a fairer, kinder, and more truthful tomorrow. My name is Adel Nazario, and I thank you.
Adele. So Adele is a 12th grader at William Penn High School, and we really appreciate you sharing your thoughts on how you could overcome hate through love. Congratulations.
Yeah, it kind of upset me, but there's nothing. That I can really do about it. No, it's just.
Why are tech issues always my problem? I think it's becoming a little theme here. Those that were not at the 110th, I had music planned for Over the Rainbow and it didn't play for like a minute and a half.
Yeah, it kind of upset me, but there's nothing that I can really do about it. I don't know, it's just easier to.
I think that, but nobody else will really care.
Our generation no longer fears a climate crisis. We're starting to accept it. And where a future seems indefinite, so may compassion for one another, as well as our confidence in ourselves and our abilities. But maybe it doesn't have to be this way. We have the power to advocate for our future and take it back. In the same way, we have the power to be a force behind transforming hate into kindness, and to believe in ourselves as the futures of the world and advocates for the change we want to see. As young people today, when we take activism into our own hands, we shift the perspective. We dismantle the idea that advocacy is only for adults, and that protecting nature, each other, and advocating for ourselves is somehow separate from protecting humanity. The activism of young people today shows us that change doesn't just happen on a global scale. It happens in our schools, in our communities, and in how we treat one another. We often think of activism as a roar, a massive protest, or a viral speech, but more often, it's a whisper. It's the quiet daily choice to live out your values when no one is watching. It isn't just something that happens out there on a stage. It happens in our daily lives. We all have the capability to change somebody's world, and if enough of us do, we'll have changed the whole world together.
That was our second place winner of $250 is Ruby Hartman. She is a 12th grader from York Catholic. And as she shared, everyone, including students, have the power to take action and impact those around us with small acts. And our first place video, he now knows.
City, and I'm a student, and I'm going to tell you about my mission. I see a lot of trash. I mean, if you see it like this kind of stuff, it creates an environment where it feels dirty, and it pollutes all of our waterways, which is one of the big issues with this. Well, it is the truth that trash is a problem, and it always has been. And it's also the truth that we need to fix it. Well, litter isn't fair to all concerned. It creates problems for people that want a cleaner environment, and the people who decide to litter create that issue. So it isn't fair for everybody. Well, first of all, removing the litter from the city create a much nicer environment for people to socialize in, but also the act of cleaning the trash up itself can create bonds between our community. We'd have a much cleaner environment. We create a better future for everybody else. It's not just us.
So our first place winner is Max Jacobs, winning $500. He is an 11th grader from York Academy Regional Charter School. We thank you for taking action to clean up litter and make York City a more beautiful place. So on behalf of the Youth Leadership Committee, we are thrilled for the first year success of this contest and being able to share what Rotary and the four-way test means to York City youth. And we look forward to improving this contest for next year. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Leanne, and thank you to your committee for rethinking, again, a Rotary tradition, kind of bringing it into the 21st century and engaging youth in a way that I think you guys like to be engaged through social media. Congratulations to all of our winners. Well done, and we look forward to seeing what you do in the future as you go along, making the world a better place, our community a better place. We appreciate that. Next up, we have Gina Spangler, who's going to introduce our speaker for today.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. Thank you. So some of you may be aware that I am on the IDA committee, and we focus on elevating awareness, inclusion, and meaningful issues that impact our community. And one of those things that we do is we kind of take a look at the calendar throughout the year and we decide what we really want to recognize and bring to the club to be aware of. And this month, May, actually, Friday, is Mental Health Awareness Month. And as we spoke about that, we really wanted to bring something to the program that will benefit what's happening in the community and what one of our fellow Rotarians is actually doing. So now I'm going to go back to my script because I really need to do that. And we do. I'm just going to put a shameless plug in. We would love some more folks to join our committee. Again, diversity makes the world go round, so please consider joining us. Today's program is especially timing because we are kicking off mental health awareness. And, last year I personally experienced a very serious health issue, and I can truly attest to the fact that most of that was a mental strength that you needed to really go through it. It makes you really reflect on what's important. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people in this room, either personally or through family members, that resonates with. So it's my honor to introduce someone who is not only part of our Rotary family, but someone who is leading a transformational work on a national level, starting right here in York, PA, Bernice Quesenberry. So Bernice is the founder and CEO of Chasing the Rainbows. It's a national 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to supporting families navigating infertility and pregnancy loss, stillbirth, infant loss, and pregnancy after loss. What began from her own lived experience has grown into a moment that is transforming how grief, trauma, and mental health are addressed by providing free, daily, accessible, trauma-informed support in a truly comprehensive way. Bernice is a graduate of York College of Pennsylvania. She earned her bachelor's degree in biology and on a pre-medical track. That foundation has helped her shape her understanding of the full human experience, recognizing the deep connection between mind and body that is central to her work today. Before leading Chasing the Rainbows full-time, Bernice built a successful insurance career. She still holds her property and casualty license in Pennsylvania with a focus on medical malpractice coverage, and previously maintained multi-state licensing. In 2002, she made the decision to step away from that work and fully dedicate herself to growing the organization so that it could be impactful nationwide. So Bernice's leadership extends beyond her organization. She serves on the York County Parks Board of Directors and the Mental Health Coalition of Pennsylvania, contributing to both community development and mental health advocacy at a broader level. On a lighter note, long before leading a national nonprofit, Bernice was setting records on the track. She still holds the 1,600-meter run record at my alma mater, Central High School. Go Panthers. A title she has held for 25 years. Yeah, bet you didn't know that, right? That same drive, resilience, and endurance carry into her life's work. Today, Chasing the Rainbows is reaching families across the country, partnering with healthcare providers, and building a model with the potential to expand into all areas of trauma care. Bernice's work reminds us that while grief may be universal, no one should have to navigate it alone, and that with the right support, healing is definitely possible. So give me a round of applause and welcome Bernice, our friend and our Rotarian.
Good afternoon, Rotary family. It is such an honor to be in front of you here today. I'm so excited to not only build awareness about Chasing the Rainbows, who we are, what we are, but also to be in front of you to kick off May, which can be a silent month for mental health awareness and maternal mental health awareness. You know, sometimes these losses are misunderstood. They're silent, they're unnatural, they're not talked about enough. So for me to be able to break that silence today with all of you, to share what we're doing and what we're transforming, truly does mean the world. I'm going to walk through some statistics and then my own personal story, because I feel like, you know, if you ever know of anyone, any of your employees, community members who are struggling with things that I have, what our organization is about, then you'll be able to share them and share what Chasing the Rainbows truly is and what we do. 1 in 4 pregnancies end in a loss. That's 1 million every year. Those numbers, you know, it's staggering. You know, every 90 seconds we lose a baby. So when you think about that, you know, these families we're navigating loss really alone, except for having maybe a once a month support group, maybe having a therapist that they could find, hopefully specializing in this area, or if not, really, it's really quiet. And when you go to share about these losses, if someone hasn't experienced them, sometimes people say to you such well-intended things that can cut like a knife, that, really do hurt. For example, when we lost our daughter, we were told, well, at least she wasn't older. At least you have a son. All of those things, like almost to try to remember to be grateful. But in those moments, you can be two things at once. I can be grieving the loss of our daughter and still be grateful for our son, right? So understanding all of that. 1 in 6 people are living with infertility. 15 million right now in the US are actively seeking infertility treatments. That's, months, years of tracking, probing, prodding, going through blood work, getting procedures done, all of these different things, IVF, trying to go through to try to get pregnant from when you were a little kid, planning your family, playing dollhouse, talking about when I get older, I'm going to have 4 kids, a white picket fence, a spouse, all these different things. And when that doesn't look like that for you, and all of a sudden you're not able to get pregnant or create this family that you're looking for, it really does change your trajectory completely. And what we always say to people, if you don't understand these losses or why someone's grieving these losses, think about it like this. When you lose your parent, you lose your past. When you lose a baby, you lose your future. Just to share a little bit about my story, as Gina mentioned, I was an insurance broker, really focusing on medical malpractice for doctors and hospital systems. It really gave me a really good foundation for understanding business, all the different parts of business, being basically a generalist in those areas. And during that time, my husband and I were struggling with a secondary infertility journey. I have endometriosis and PCOS. So over years, I've had surgeries to remove cysts and fibroids, which, have caused a lot of infertility issues. It took us years to get pregnant, had to go through corrective surgeries, had to get put on medicated cycles, progesterone, to finally then become pregnant. We were excited when we saw those 2 lines. You never think of you're going to be a part of this lost family when you do try to get pregnant and want to have kids. And all of a sudden, at 8 weeks, we're noticing some symptoms, went into the hospital, was told it could be the implanting of your placenta, it could be that you're miscarrying. Go home, your doctor will follow up with you, your results will be in your chart, but you have another baby in there, just be grateful for that other baby. And it was like in those moments, like, wow, like, what are you telling me? What is happening, And my husband's a twin. So we were really looking forward to the potential to maybe have twins someday. So anyways, went home, remained grateful for our Brooke, who I was still carrying, went on to have a healthy pregnancy until it wasn't. I went in for a 28-week ultrasound. I go in, all of a sudden there's no fluid anywhere. They're saying that Brooke is, her heart rate is very fluctuating. They're not sure what's going on. I get put on bed rest in the hospital. So they immediately wheel me into the hospital, and they're praying that it's going to be for 6 weeks, right? To keep her in there until she's about 34 weeks. Well, after 2 days of being in the hospital, them monitoring us, her heart rate was tanking. They said, we need to do emergency C-section and we need to move now. So, by then we delivered her and she came out exactly at 28 weeks old. She was healthy, fully developed, was thriving, but she was a micro preemie. She was only 2 pounds, 2 ounces. So she had a long ways to go and to grow. So from that moment, I thought the worst part of this journey was going to be the day I got discharged from the hospital and had to leave her behind in the NICU. And that's really what, you have to lie to yourself when you're in these moments and hold on to those like positivities, right? When you're in this journey. So we spent weeks with her in the NICU, doing 10-hour marathon holds, having her across my chest for skin to skin. She was only getting my breast milk, all the things, we were doing everything. We were getting ready to take her home. We were told, late March, she's finally at 5 pounds and some ounces. We were really excited. And we were looking at, setting up the nursery. We just had our baby shower, all of the things. And on March 16th, just a couple days before that discharge date, we got a call at 4 a.m. and they said, she threw up breast milk. She doesn't look like herself. She's very lethargic. We're going to have to make some calls here, but you need to get into the hospital immediately. So we rushed into the hospital. They were intubating her. They were trying everything that they could. They didn't know what was happening. Within 6 hours, she's crashing. We're watching them try to resuscitate her for an hour and a half. The team was throwing everything they had at her. And ultimately, I went to her bedside and I held her until she died. And, in those moments, I never thought I was going to have to bury a child. And I left the hospital that day empty-armed. Hardest thing was saying goodbye to my child that I was never going to see physically ever again. And I left with a bunch of resources, left with a cuddle cub that weighed the same amount that she did. And realizing, why does my arm ache? Like, why do my arms hurt, right? And it's because as a mom, biologically, everything does, I'm still pumping for a daughter that I don't have here with me anymore. You can't just stop that. I have this postpartum body and no baby to show for this. What just happened? Like, I was just in here last night. She looked completely healthy and fine. We're getting ready to take her home in a week. What is this? I get a call from HR the next day. Now that my baby died, I had to return to work. My FMLA is cut. I have 3 days to grieve. You're medically cleared. You have to come back. How can I read a contract and walk through liabilities with hospitals is very tough too, and doctors and businesses and everything, just in regards. How can I even do any of that right now? I can't even just process what just happened yesterday. And we're not burying her for 2 weeks. So regardless, I picked up the pieces and had to move, had to figure this out. I didn't want to lose those secondary things that so many of us do in loss. I didn't want to lose my job that I was so confident in and loved. I didn't want to lose, that lack of income and then put our family in such a financial strain. All of those different things. I called 15 trauma therapists. I couldn't get one to call me back, and I could pay out of pocket. So I said, I have Capital Blue Cross insurance. If you don't accept my private insurance, I'll pay her $500 per session out of pocket fee. My daughter died in my arms. Please call me back, and could not get a call back. Also, they had a once a month hospital support group. I wasn't walking back in that hospital right after I went through a loss with her. I'm not walking through those doors. I'm not hearing alarms. I'm not seeing people in gowns, doctors, things like that. I wasn't ready for it. There was a once a month church support group. Well, one, that wasn't my church, that wasn't my religion. And I was questioning my God, right? Like, how don't you in those moments? And it took all the energy I had just to even get to work. So to actually make it in person to a once a month support group was really difficult. So, just thinking through all these things, like, how can we change this? Something needs to change here. And to respond to how we're truly grieving these types of losses. So the human cost, right? So obviously, grieving, you assume that with these losses, going through the grief process, having those responses, everything like that. But the one piece that is interesting, and really until you live it, you don't really understand is that trauma piece. It really is like the things that I was experiencing went above and beyond grief, and I couldn't really recognize and understand what it truly was. And so, 60% experience PTSD after these losses. They're very sudden, abrupt, fight or flight, all of those different things. 70% are having these kind of responses to this, even if they're not saying PTSD. And then also 80% of couples go through despair, separation, divorce from these, even if it's years later, but it's shown. And the reason being, my husband grieved very differently. He stuffed things down. He needed to keep moving forward. He had to keep a routine for us. I was very much the type that needed to sit with, process, talk through, Google deep dive until I felt comfort and could move on from something. I needed to get medical experts' opinions to look at her charts and our medical, documents, everything. And that's normal and that's okay. But when you're not grieving the same and you feel like you're the only two that really knew your daughter, your child, it's really hard when you're not coming together during those moments and you feel like, am I going to go through another loss, another significant loss during this time? And so, having a place that couples can go to and things like that is really imperative during this time. These numbers, it's almost mind-boggling when we first saw these. We include these in grants and everything that we write because it's so important to see how much we're paying every year to this being in the workplace. PTSD is costing us $232 billion every year in the workplace. Mental health, $193 billion. Grief, $75 billion. This is from absenteeism, not being able to perform, going on intermittent FMLA, all of those different things that happen when you're not really fully able to be at full capacity during that time. So it just really goes to show that it not only does affect us emotionally, mentally, physically as individuals, but it also does affect our pockets and our bottom lines at the end of the day. So what are we doing to change this, right? So I couldn't just sit in my grief. I needed to repurpose it. I felt like, we got to Hopkins after pregnancy, after loss, and delivered 2 daughters after Brooke. and talking to them through pregnancy after loss too, right? Reliving all of my traumas. I didn't know there was something wrong with Brooke in her pregnancy. I was nervous that I was going to have to go through this again with our other daughters. So, having a care team that understood was fantastic, and it's so different. But then also to understand, is there a community? 1 in 4 of us are living with these losses. Where is that community of people who actually understand what I've been living with and what I'm going through to talk to, get advice and guidance for different things, and then apply it or choose my own path, but be able to talk to someone that actually gets it. And so we support those daily that have experienced these types of losses, and we do it by providing trauma-informed care and also resources in a safe environment. Because when you're going through trauma and these types of losses, safety, security, all of those things are so important. And to find that and turn to a group of people who will actually understand what you're going through. So let's break this down. All of our services are free. The reason why they're free, we don't want someone to have to choose between groceries and doing mental health. We also want to make sure that this is easily accessible. We cut down so many barriers to make sure people can get the support that they need, when they need and seek it, and how they need and seek it. Also, trauma informed. So all of our peers who volunteer with us, run support groups, do different things, which I'll get into. They are all trauma-informed trained. The reason being, we need to handle this with such care and compassion when they're coming to us to make sure that we're doing this as gentle as possible. And we're making it about their losses. We're recognizing crisis, all of those different things that are so important with this. Our daily approach model. When you think about grief and trauma, the responses happen daily to you. Any time of the day. It doesn't fit into that once a month or once a week model that we've kind of gotten used to here in the US. It really is about, going through the day, especially those first weeks, months, and years after loss, whenever it hits, that you have a place to be able to turn to talk to, that has the consistent language and the consistent message across the board, has the same schedule, when everything is, is very upfront and transparent about all of that. But then also evidence-based protocols, our therapists, our volunteers and everything, we follow evidence-based, and that's because there's a science behind it, and we need to make sure that we are following best practices with that. And also education for the providers. When you're in the hospital settings going through your losses and you're recovering as you don't have your baby there, your baby passed, anyone down to the housekeeper walking into that room knows it's a loss room and doesn't say, congratulations, is your baby in the nursery? Or having them near the nursery and hearing babies cry, or next to somebody who's having a celebratory birth. How can we make this more trauma-informed so those re-traumatizations aren't happening within those hospital walls? And those people will come back and be served by you if they're feeling seen, heard, and validated by their team in those moments. And a lot of times when they're doing their rounds, doctors and nurses, they have a couple minutes. So how can they optimize that time with those lost parents and not say things that are so well intended, but to shut them down to be able to walk out of that room, right? Because they have to, bust out and do their rounds. So how can we help them with that? So our support services, I get really excited to go through the support services, of course. We just couldn't be here today if it wasn't for the support that we get from grant-making foundations. Over the years, the Wareheim Foundation, Powder Mill, Way Foundation, the York County Community Foundation have really stood beside us. And new this year is the UPMC Pinnacle Foundation, so we're excited to have them join. We still have some pending grants out there, but that is really what's making this work possible for us here in York County and growing it from here. We do daily virtual support groups, so we have up to 4 a day. Now, the thing about our services is we do them in different buckets. So we do infertility trying to conceive, we do pregnancy and infant loss as its own bucket, and pregnancy after loss as its own bucket. We want to make sure no one is triggering someone else. So someone who can't conceive, we don't have someone who's pregnant in that group. All of those different things. We run 18 every week, 1 on Saturdays, 1 on Sundays, and we host them on holidays because holidays is the biggest grieving period too for parents. We also do peer mentorship. So if somebody reaches out to us, we pair them with someone with a similar lived experience to be able to do those daily check-ins. Because when you're hearing from someone who's going through the same thing you are, it hits a lot differently when you're receiving a text message and someone truly wants to know how you are doing. We do trauma therapy in-house, so we do individual trauma therapy. This is like I mentioned about what happened to me with therapists and trying to get a call back. We eliminate that completely. They can have that one-on-one talk with specialists that understand these types of losses. We also do a podcast called Cried Out Loud. It's on all major platforms, and it's about lost parents sharing their story. And then it's also about medical providers talking about these different conditions. So if you don't want to talk in group, talk to a mentor, talk to a therapist, you can listen. We also have private chat communities, so you can get in there and you can narrate what's going on with you. You can type it out, and then you can feel the warmth of the community around you. Are you looking for support? Are you looking for guidance or advice? All of those different things, so we know how to support them. We do mindful movement. So we do yoga, breath work, meditation, and nervous system regulation, both live sessions monthly and videos that they can find on our website. So when they're going through those overwhelming moments of fight or flight with nervous system regulation, they can access these videos to help ground themselves in those moments. Breath work techniques, when you're going through panic attacks or overwhelming moments, all can be found on our website. We do coping care packages. So a big thing is, when I was in the hospital, I was given items to memorialize the baby. But then when I got home, there was really nothing about self-care. So that's what we're doing here too, to try to give them those coping skills once they get home. We also vet out resources. Vetting out resources, if we're sending someone to a nonprofit that's doing medical bill assistance, we want to make sure they're able to take on the amount of lost parents that we are servicing. This also is where we recognize maybe where there's loopholes in our system, and then we can form other, support services from there. We do this year, thank you to the, our grant making foundations, we're able to do guided journal coloring books with positive affirmations. So 45 pages long, they're in those different sectors of care. And one side of the page is a lined page with guided words, and you can either follow that prompt or you can write your own, or a coloring page with a positive affirmation. You can color in those overwhelming moments, rip that page out, hang it on the mirror, and say those positive affirmations to yourself, because body shame, blame, and guilt is a huge thing that lost moms go through when they lose their baby. We're also doing CME training, 3-hour perinatal bereavement trauma-informed training for doctors and nurses in hospitals to wrap our arms around these families. So then they get their CE credits, and we're able to give those to the hospital systems on how to make their units trauma-informed care. We have the director of maternal fetal medicine from all of Johns Hopkins on our board of directors as our medical advisor. And we also have a medical advisory council, which I'll get into then, taking a look at this from that standpoint with our trauma therapists and the lost parents we're servicing and getting their feedback. Oh, and just to mention, we are piloting. So a big area of opportunity for us is funeral assistance. So a lot of times lost families come to us and they're asking for assistance to be able to bury their child. And we thought we had enough nonprofits to be able to cover this across the US, different states, things like that. But unfortunately, the funding just has not been there for them. And so that's something that we're now going to have to take control over in our organization, which we're so grateful for, to be able to have major donors come behind us, people to get behind us. Beck's Funeral Home here in York willing to do free, low cost, funeral assistance for us. So just grateful for those opportunities to be able to expand our services and see how we can help, instead of a baby sitting in a morgue for a couple months, being able to give them that burial that they deserve and need, because no family plans for this. We started here in York County, never hoping, thinking that we saw a need, doing a SWOT analysis, a gap analysis, but just the way that this has taken off, and we're in all 50 states now. We have hospital relationships all across the US. They're seeing a need too, people leaving the hospital empty-armed, having these resources to be able to turn to that are so well thought out, very comprehensive, is extremely important. And it does, keep that relationship between them and the lost parent as well. So we're really trying to standardize the care here for trauma. What we're doing here and specializing in all of these different areas for infertility, pregnancy, infant loss, pregnancy after loss, really can be a model that is used for different traumas, different losses, not necessarily just this. And then finding the specialists to be able to step in and do all of those things and get them trained as well. So, looking at all of this, it really is, building a bridge to how we should be looking at and providing that care so people can go and turn to a support group on their lunch break to be able to jump in, but then return to work and all of those things. So just making sure that we're keeping it where we can look at them potentially growing this into different sectors. This is our functional expense report from 2025. We've We operate at a less than 2% operational budget, which we keep it very grassroots, very lean. We rely heavily on volunteers, which we are so grateful for. And the majority of our money goes right back into our program services. But as a 4-year nonprofit, we definitely had to, invest in fundraising. And the good part is, we did have a 4.6 time return on that investment to be able to fund our programs this year. So very grateful, for all the work that our volunteers are doing in all the different states that we're operating into. So last year we were able to serve over 10,000 lost families, and that's across all of our different support services. We invested $154,000 into our mission expenses. When we look at this right now, we are scaling this to be, state chapters. So we want to keep that local approach to the national arm, really. So we want to make sure that we're dividing out. And right now we have what's called state ambassadors who are volunteers, developing all those state chapters, hosting events, doing outreach for us, really helping us to bring in that funding to be able to support their state. Just to mention, we have a medical advisory council that we formed. A couple things that people look at and we want to make sure we're following is that evidence-based protocol to these types of support services. So forming this medical council, we have UCLA on it, we have Columbia, we have NYU, we have Johns Hopkins. We have a bunch of big name people to be able to look at things and take it from their lens and make sure that we are following best practices with all of this. But that's just to say, one of the committees and trying to make sure that we are industry experts in this. Here are some testimonials from some of our lost parents who have gotten our services over the years in different ways. Really appreciate hearing it from them, how much it's impacting, because this is the only way we're going to grow and continue to grow is through what we're doing, how we're doing it, and hearing it from the lost parents themselves and how we're making impact on them, because really it's about them. It's not about us. So a future where every family is supported, we're starting those state chapters, like I said, in different states, really trying to anchor down roots in those states. So we're really looking for people to come behind our mission, get involved, want to become a part of this to help with outreach events. So really that is really what makes our engine keep going. So we're looking for those supporters to be able to help us and, that see a need in this. And anytime that you're going through anything tough and realizing the lack of resources out there and being able to make sure that it's easily accessible during any hard time in somebody's life. These are just a couple of events that we have over this year. We didn't put all of October up, so October is pregnancy and infant loss awareness. We have a lot of awareness walks and things like that, but we put the main ones up. On your tables, you'll see QR codes. We are participating in Give Local. We do have a bursting bubble run and walk on Sunday, and that is at John Rudy Park. And then also we have our gala in October for Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. That should have been the thank you slide. Oh, there it is. Okay, good. But thank you so much for allowing me to be up here today to talk with all of you, to spread awareness about our mission. It truly means the world to be in front of my Rotary family. So thank you. Oh, good. I do have time for questions. I'm surprised I didn't run over. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Great, Bernice. Yeah, I'm apoplectic. That's how you know this was impactful. I'm thinking about the spouses.
Yes.
I wonder if you have any services available, support groups just for the dudes, because if I were a man, I'd be like, I don't know how to help you, lady. I'm so sorry.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I feel it. Thank you. Thank you for asking that. We do. We collaborate with an organization called the Sad Dads Club. They started out of Maine. It was 3 dads that went to college together and they all experienced a stillbirth in the same year. And they started around the same time we did in 2022. So they do free therapy for the guys. They have support groups for them. They're basically doing everything we're doing with Chasing the Rainbow. So that's why it was a perfect collaboration. And I cannot say that more. I know they feel so helpless in supporting their spouse, and to have that to be able to talk through, absolutely. So thank you for asking, and always happy if somebody knows somebody that needs these services, please reach out. We always are happy to make sure everybody gets the support they need. Steve.
Thank you so much. This has been really fascinating. You mentioned having trouble getting counseling services to call you back. a similar experience in our family. Somebody who experienced a trauma was being told it was a 6-month wait to see anybody. How have you overcome that? I understand that most counseling services have a backlog. They're having trouble finding people to perform the work. So I'm interested in how you've been able to provide instant access.
Absolutely. So we have a director of therapeutic programs who's a licensed trauma therapist, can do EMDR, all of those types of, but we have therapists who volunteer for us. We also pay them. So we don't have a backlog. We are very grateful, and we will make it and find the therapist to be able to support this work. So we make sure that it's easily accessible for them. So we break down all of those barriers by making sure we find the right people, have those difficult conversations, and then find the funding for it. So we have not at this point had any backlog or needed to put anybody on a wait list, and we're very grateful for that. Yeah.
Wow, Bernice, thank you so much for sharing. What you've built through Chasing the Rainbows is both deeply compassionate and incredibly important. You've helped shine a light on something that is often carried quietly and reminded us that grief, while it's acknowledged and supported, when it's acknowledged and supported, can be met with care instead of isolation. Your work challenges us all to think differently about how we show up for one another, in our families, our workplaces, and across our community. It's powerful to know that efforts like yours right here in York are helping shape a broader conversation around trauma-informed care. So on behalf of the Rotary Club of York, thank you for your impact that you're making and for sharing your time and perspective with us today. As you know, our speaker signs a book to be donated to the Crispus Attucks York Early Learning Center, along with a bookmark made by students at Creative York. This week's book is My Octopus Arms. Next week, we will hear from Rob Evans, an artist who has lived and worked in York County for over 4 decades. His work has been exhibited worldwide and can be found in many prominent museum collections, including the National Gallery of Art, the Metropolitan Museum, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Evans will speak about his journey as an artist, the impact of the Susquehanna River Valley on his work. He will also speak about his longtime advocacy and involvement with many of York County's art organizations, including the newly formed nonprofit Friends of the Susquehanna River Art Collection, which is currently engaged with the development of a new Susquehanna-themed art museum as part of the Susquehanna Discovery Center and Heritage Park. Sounds like a very good meeting next week. Just before I adjourn, I would just remind all of the new guardians to please leave your name badges in the badge board where you can pick them up next week at our meeting. So with that, our meeting is adjourned. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.